So I had to take a bit of time to process Oppenheimer, and I was actually the last person to leave the cinema, as you can see here. I'll give you my thoughts in a second. So it's quite dark here, as you can see, but in the spirit of sort of immediacy, I've just finished watching Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan's, well, masterpiece, actually. I think I'll give my fairly immediate reaction when I've got slightly more light, but this is a fantastic film. It's just incredible. The sort of culmination of Nolan's work, really. The character work is just second to none. Cillian Murphy's just fantastic throughout. My advice would be to just go and see this film. Films like this don't come along very often. It's marvelous, and I needed a few minutes afterwards. I actually sat through the entire credits. I was the last person to leave the cinema, and again, an understated score from Ludwig Göransson, who was responsible for the very bombastic Tenet score. So this was a real demonstration of his sort of breadth of abilities, really. But I'm going to head somewhere where I have more light for a start, and gather my thoughts on the drive home, and yeah, give a more detailed account of this film. But the takeaway is it's just wonderful, and sort of devastating, and terrifying, and melancholy, but with glints of hope. It's a real thing that needs to be unpacked, and I'm gonna give it some thought and then give you my thoughts. So it's very late and I'm home now from Oppenheimer, but yes, I've been thinking a bit more about the film, and yeah, it's interesting because I never really thought I'd hear people leaving the cinema discussing the ramifications and machinations of various legal proceedings about the life of a nuclear physicist. But there were plenty of people talking about it as they left, and sort of trying to explain some of the bits of this. I mean, this is a talky film. It's kind of the polar opposite of Dunkirk, which had very little dialogue. This one has acres of it, and it's complex, and it's not necessarily what you'd expect, and I can see this being slightly polarizing. I loved it personally, but I can see some people may have seen the various trailers and the explosion and things like that, and would be expecting this to be slightly more action-packed than it is. But the action is all pretty much etched on Cillian Murphy's face. It conveys brilliantly how this man is extremely flawed, and is a genius trying to cope with the things that are inside his head, and the sort of contrast between his brilliance and his brilliant mind, and the fact that he struggles with naivety and understanding the ramifications of what he's doing, and it brilliantly sort of encapsulates his shifting ideas of the work that he was doing, and the rectitude of that. In large part, there is a sort of courtroom drama aspect to it. It flips between sort of full colour and black and white for, I think, slightly too artistic reasons, really. I mean, it's not entirely necessary, because it's a non-linear story. I mean, it's a Nolan film, so obviously that's the case, and there are sort of hidden bits which get referred to, and return to. So, I mean, a case in point is the scene in which Tom Conti plays Einstein, and there's a conversation by a lake where his hat blows off, and I can see that becoming a meme. There are some brilliant artistic flourishes which are truly disturbing, especially around the aftermath of the dropping of the nuclear bombs on Japan, on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. These are not presented as the direct circumstances of the dropping of those bombs, but more Oppenheimer's conceptualization of what that means. It goes without saying, really, that the trailers tell you all you need to know about the visual effects in this film. They are marvelous, and I've seen a few interviews with Christopher Nolan about how they achieve some of these real effects rather than CGI. He didn't use any CGI at all, and the idea of the sort of sparks that are inside Oppenheimer's mind, and they manifest themselves in the splitting of the atom and ultimately the creation of the A-bomb. There's obviously an all-star cast which everyone will be aware of, but there's a great sort of cameo from Gary Oldman playing the utterly repulsive Harry S. Truman in the film, and it really sort of marks the way in which Oppenheimer's genius was sort of harnessed when it was necessary for the United States, and then as soon as he wanted to exert some level of control over the genie that he'd taken out of the bottle, he was sort of cruelly and discarded and just treated like dirt, really. Some of the best character work took place between Matt Damon and Cillian Murphy, who sort of played very sort of different chalk and cheese characters, but there was a sort of grudging respect between the two, and the dialogue was brilliant, very engaging, and it sort of made you sort of want to see them on screen together more. And the 3-hour runtime, which again I think some people will complain about, really did allow for for displaying the sort of seismic changes in the American sort of political landscape between the sort of Spanish Civil War and the before the Second World War started, and then the immediate sort of rug pulled out from under Oppenheimer as soon as the Cold War began to ensue with the Soviet Union. And there was a real sort of desperation. I mean, I think other directors might have ended this film with the successful Trinity test of the world's first nuclear bomb, but that happened pretty much in the middle of the film, and the rest of the film was sort of dedicated towards displaying the sort of dismay and the changing attitudes towards Oppenheimer, and the brilliant way in which Cillian Murphy demonstrated, his manic sadness, really, about the loss of control over his creation. Finally, whilst this was a talky film, there was a lot of dialogue. It was dialogue heavy, and there were a lot of procedural kind of scenes within it, which might not sound particularly engaging on the face of it, but it borrowed heavily from Oliver Stone's JFK in presenting these sort of highly important but probably quite procedural sounding conversations, and it never ever stopped being interesting. It was, I mean, it looked incredible throughout, and the way in which you shoot a conversation, which or someone giving evidence in a sort of small dingy room, in which there was a lot of in this film, may have been done in a sort of one-dimensional way, but it was always shot in sort of interesting ways. It showed different expressions, different sort of subversive behaviours. Everyone had an angle. It was just an intriguing film to watch, and again, I would absolutely recommend this film. But that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. And you can also support the channel on Subscribe Star via the link in the description. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.